After typing more than 70,000 words, taking it on the back of an airplane, and only using this device at Microsoft's Ignite conference, this is the Surface Pro X review. What's up everybody, Brad here back again, and I have been using Microsoft's Surface Pro X, this guy right here, for a substantial amount of time. I just got back from a recent trip to Orlando, Florida, and this is all that I took. I have typed more than 70,000 words on this thing, writing up posts and content and emails and tweets and Skype messages and everything else. I have been doing a lot of productivity-based work using Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of that good stuff, watching movies, playing Spotify. And here's what you need to know. I think this thing has gotten a little bit of a bad rap out of the box because I think some people were potentially thinking this is the be-all, end-all solution for the next great PC. But I'm here to tell you what this device is good for, who should be buying it, and if I would personally buy it myself. This was a review unit sent to me by Microsoft for full transparency, but here you go. On the surface, a little ironic or pun of the name, I quite like this device. There's no other way to describe it. I used it on a back of a plane. I used it on the show floor. I've used it just about every way conceivably possible on LTE. I've used it to take pictures with the camera, and I quite like this device. It is not a high-end machine. It is not a video editing machine. It is not a photo editing machine. What this thing is a mobile workhorse, or a mobile machine is probably the best way to describe it, because it's not perfect, right? It does not run non-ARM 64-bit apps. So if it's an Intel or AMD 64-bit app, it will not run here. It will run any 32-bit flavor app in an emulation which I will tell you, if you didn't know, you probably wouldn't even notice because it's very minor. It is very minor. And even running things like Chrome, 32-bit Chrome, it works. It works. Like it was not a hindrance to my productivity while on the road. And there's other great features about this. One, the instant on capability here. If you just turn it on, of course, I was just traveling with this thing, and actually, is the battery flat because I was trying to run it dead? Nope, never mind. It's instantly on. Instantly on. You just tap the button, it'll be on. I can actually probably even get it better just by going like that. You can see it's instantly on. Instant on finally works on a Windows device. Intel is shipping this also with some of their products for the 3rd generation. I will tell you that this has been more consistent than the Intel versions that I have played with. So instant on, 80% of a charge in an hour, and sometimes I think I was getting even a little bit more than that, if I'm honest. But when it comes to performance, that is a big question mark because this is using a customized version of the 8CX processor from Snapdragon or from Qualcomm, I should say. And what they've really done is overclocked it to about 3 gigahertz. While they would not explicitly say it, I'm almost positive what is for the emulation layer or virtualization of the 32-bit app process that is needed to use to run those old style classic apps. Now, is that a problem? For me, it wasn't so much of a problem. I didn't have any great performance hiccups. There were definitely times where you could see where there was a little bit of wonkiness. What I mean is like maybe an app would hang up for like microseconds, but overall it was more than fine. And the other interesting thing too about this is the battery life. Battery life has been all over the board for me, but we're going to talk about this in a second because it's been as bad as 5 hours and up to 7 hours. Now, the reason why I bring these two things up, like the little wonkiness of the OS and the mixed battery life, is that since I have had the hardware, Microsoft has shipped 2 substantial firmware updates. And while it's hard to tell exactly what is placebo and what is not, I definitely feel like after the first update was installed last week, stability did get better, and the odd kind of artifacts that were floating around the UI that would kind of hang up on occasion, it did feel like those went away. Now, the battery life, I haven't been able to fully test. Microsoft is saying that we should be getting better battery life with this latest update, but here's the thing. By the time you're watching this, I fully expect that there are going to be several more updates that roll out through the year. Microsoft is aggressively pushing out updates to this hardware and optimizing it because it's the new baby, right? It's now out in the public and they're going to start pushing out even more frequent updates, I fully expect. I need to do deeper battery testing to see if we are going to get better battery life, but on the surface, it does look like we are going to get a little bit more juice out of this thing with that latest firmware update. Microsoft is doing everything they can to get it up to speed. So keep that in mind, that while a review at this time I would be confident to say about 7 hours of battery life, there's a very good chance that by the time you are using this or buying one of these, that battery life will have improved. And if you've watched this channel at all, by the way, folks, I do reviews over the long haul. I did a Surface Pro 6 1 year later. I've done the Surface Go after 1 year. I will do it also at the 6-month mark because I think this, of all devices, is going to be extremely important to follow how it develops and matures during its first year of availability. Now, that being said, this device cost $1,000 out of the gate for the hardware with an SQ1 processor, which is the customized version of the 8CX. It's $1,000, and then you're looking at about $269 for this fancy type cover. In the type cover, it is fancy. It's hard to explain how convenient this is now because you're thinking, hey, this is just like the type cover that we've seen elsewhere, right? It just attaches. Well, we know now that there's a pen that docks up here, and it's always with you. And having that pen always with you has significantly increased my usage of the pen because previously it was, oh yeah, I know the Surface Pro would work with a pen, but is it in my backpack? Do I need to go fishing for it? No, it's always here. And I will tell you that this thing will not fall out. Like, so the pen, or pencil, they call it, a Carpenter style pencil, is docked in there correctly. It is not, it's not falling out. Like it's in there. It's done very well. It's got some great magnets, and it actually charges when it is in this little configuration. And fun fact here, you can't actually put it in the wrong way. If you try to put it in upside down, the magnets force it to flip over to the correct configuration so that it can charge. And that is forwards. Like it doesn't matter if it's pointing this way or this way, it will still charge. For those of you who keep track of these things like I like to, there's a new pin configuration here on, I'm going to see if I can't get this to focus. This might be a bit difficult. There's a new pin configuration there on the type cover. So it's just in a single blade. It looks like it's about 5-6 connectors that will then just snap in. The snap in experience is pretty much the same, right? No big changes there. So here's kind of what you guys are wondering. It's like, would you buy this thing, right? It's $1,000 plus $269 for the type cover that you really want. They do sell one without the pen, but I think you're missing half the equation if you do buy that version. So you're looking $1,300 for the Surface Pro X, and I will tell you that is not cheap. That is the Achilles heel of this device, I think, more than anything. I don't think the battery life is the Achilles heel. I don't think the performance is the Achilles heel. I don't think the display is the Achilles heel, because the display, I mean, it's a great look. You got that edge to edge. It looks modern. It's got 2 USB Type-C. It's got fast charging. It hits all the right marks for a premium device. But the performance isn't perfect for a premium device, because here's where the performance lays out. If you use a Microsoft Surface Go, and I'll put the chart up here, and this is using Geekbench 4, by the way, because Geekbench 5 will not run on the Surface Pro X because it is a 64-bit app, so we were forced to use Geekbench 4. Here's the rough approximation of how the performance shakes out. If you can use a Microsoft Surface Go, the Pro X will meet your demands, and it has a lot better performance. If you are using a Surface Laptop 1, you should be able to go to the Pro X and not really suffer from any performance issues. If you are using a higher end Pro 6 or of course the Pro 7 with an Intel processor, you're going to be stepping down in your performance. Here's the interesting one. Now, purely from a Geekbench 4 score, this device is roughly matching that of the AMD 15-inch with a Ryzen 5 processor, which to me is really interesting, because is that meaning that the Ryzen 5 is really low, like really low on performance, or is the Surface Pro X really high? I suspect that it's probably that the AMD chip is pretty low on performance, and that's my take on it. So, Surface Pro X, should you buy one of these? Should you buy one of these? If there's a lot of things that run through my head, because if you're going to spend $1,300 on a device, you need to outline very specifically what you're going to be doing. If you are looking for a device that you're going to be typing just gobs of typing, and it's going to be for writing essays and dissertations. Personally, I would get a laptop because the Surface laptop with an Intel chip, the 13.5 inch, roughly the same price, fantastic machine, and you will be extremely happy with it. Where this machine excels for me is the connectivity and the mobility, because you get the pen, you get LTE is built in, you get pretty good battery life, which is improving, you get instant on, and the very nice thing, which I have not run into on any other device, if I set this thing down for a couple days and I pick it right back up, the battery is right where I left it. It's got that longevity. I like to think of this as Microsoft's ultra mobile version of a Pro. It is better at mobility than a traditional Pro 7, but is also less performant. So if mobility is your top priority, and I mean that, and you're going to be doing just emails, Word, watching some videos, watching movies on the go, and you want something thin, light, and always has a pen, you will be very happy with this. You will absolutely be very happy with it. And you'll get to bring all your fingerprints with you along on this black, because you'll need a microfiber cloth. Keep that in mind. But, and the big but, is if you're spending $1,300 and mobility isn't the number one item on your checklist, you're going to have better options that you might be able to find. You grab a Surface Laptop 3, grab a Pro and an entry-level Pro 7, because a Pro 7 will give you some of the mobility, but more performance, but you'll get a smaller screen size. So the one thing to take away here is, now the Surface brand has a lot of options. I like the Pro X. It is not perfect. It is not for everyone. What I'm trying to really distill through this review, and what I'll talk about as I move through the year or the months reviewing this thing, is you have to be the right person in the right demographic for this device. And if you are, you're going to love it. And I can tell you that it will hold up, because I used it down at Microsoft's Ignite conference, which is a grueling time for myself. We're doing interviews. We are running around the show floor. I needed the mobility. I needed the LTE connectivity, because the Wi-Fi was crap in the Orlando Conference Center. And this, for that scenario, was the perfect device. I couldn't edit video on it. I couldn't edit the photos, but we had an editing team with us. But to be able to run around, take notes, talk to people, and just work anywhere, the Surface Pro X was the right machine for that job. And if it's the right machine for your job, you're going to love it. If it's not, you're going to run into issues.